The bass thundered through my ribcage like a second heartbeat, each pulse reminding me I was still here, still breathing, still pretending I belonged in a place like this. Crystal chandeliers caught the strobing lights above, fracturing them into 1,000 tiny stars that danced across marble floors slick with spilled champagne. The air tasted expensive, leather and imported cigars mixed with perfumes I couldn't pronounce, let alone afford. I pressed myself against the wall near the kitchen entrance, balancing an empty tray against my hip, while my feet screamed inside these borrowed heels. 3 hours into my shift, and I'd already spilled wine on my apron, torn my stockings on a chair leg, and narrowly avoided a collision with a woman wearing more diamonds than my entire apartment building was worth. Move it, sweetheart. Marco, the head waiter, brushed past me carrying champagne flutes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Table 7 needs refills 5 minutes ago. I nodded, swallowing the exhaustion that had become my constant companion since Mom got sick. The hospital bills were drowning us, and this catering gig, my 3rd job this week, was barely keeping our heads above water. But I smiled anyway, grabbed a fresh tray, and dove back into the glittering chaos of Manhattan's elite celebrating something I'd never be invited to understand. The venue was absurd in its opulence. Venetian masks decorated the walls, and ice sculptures melted slowly in corners, their dripping creating tiny pools that reflected the madness above. Somewhere, a violin wept over the electronic beat, and I wondered if anyone actually listened to it, or if it was just another expensive decoration, like the orchids wilting in their crystal vases. I was refilling champagne glasses at table 12 when I first felt it. That prickling awareness that crawls up your spine when someone's watching. Not the casual glance of a guest wondering if you'll refill their drink, but something heavier. Predatory. My hands trembled slightly as I poured, and I forced them steady. The last thing I needed was to draw attention by shattering a glass. But the feeling persisted, a physical weight pressing between my shoulder blades. "Thank you, dear," an older woman in emeralds murmured, not looking at me. I murmured something appropriate and turned, scanning the crowd for Marco or another server, anyone to give me a task that would take me to the other side of this ballroom. That's when I saw him, the bar. He stood behind it like he owned not just the space but the very air around it. Dark hair, almost black in the dim lighting, pushed back carelessly as if he couldn't be bothered with styling but somehow looked perfect anyway. Sharp jaw, the kind of handsome that made you forget to breathe, made you forget you were working, made you forget everything except the way his hands moved as he poured something amber into a crystal tumbler. But it wasn't his looks that froze me in place. It was the way everyone gave him space, the way conversations seemed to lower when he moved. The way even the other bartenders, professionals who'd been here longer than me, deferred to him with small nods, with carefully averted eyes. And he was looking directly at me. My pulse kicked up, hammering against my throat. His eyes were dark, unreadable from this distance, but I felt the weight of his attention like a physical touch. I should look away, should get back to work, should do literally anything except stand here staring like some starstruck teenager. Instead, my traitorous feet carried me toward the bar. I told myself it was because I needed to refill my tray, told myself it was coincidence that he was the one manning the station. Told myself the flutter in my stomach was just exhaustion and hunger, nothing more. Up close, he was even more devastating. The bar lights caught the sharp planes of his face, the slight shadow of stubble along his jaw. He wore all black, dress shirt rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms that suggested he did more than just pour drinks for a living. There was a scar, thin and pale, cutting through his left eyebrow. "What can I get you?" His voice was smooth, controlled, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, or somewhere nearby. It wrapped around my bones like silk and smoke. My voice came out embarrassingly breathy. I cleared my throat, lifted my tray with hands that suddenly felt clumsy. "Just refills. Whatever's popular tonight." One dark eyebrow rose, and the corner of his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Everything's popular when it's free." He moved with efficiency, filling glasses with practiced ease, but I noticed how his attention never fully left me, how his eyes tracked my movements when I shifted my weight, when I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "First time working this venue?" he asked, his tone conversational. But there was something else underneath, something that felt like assessment. "Yes, I'm with the catering company." I gestured vaguely at my uniform, already regretting the wine stain on my apron. Next to his crisp perfection, I felt like a disaster. "You?" "Something like that." He set the last glass on my tray with deliberate care, his fingers brushing mine for a fraction of a second. The touch sent electricity up my arm. I should leave. Should thank him and get back to work. But standing here, in this small bubble of space where the music felt distant and the crowd seemed to blur at the edges, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Alive. "You're staring," he observed, not unkindly. Heat flooded my cheeks. "Sorry, I'm just tired. Long week." "How long?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "How long has it been a long week?" His eyes held mine, genuinely curious, and I had the strangest sensation that he actually wanted to know, that my answer mattered. 6 months, I admitted before I could stop myself. Since my mom got sick, since everything became hospital visits and medical bills and jobs like this where I'm invisible to everyone except when they need something. Why was I telling him this? I didn't know his name. Didn't know anything about him except that he poured drinks and looked at me like I was the only person in this overcrowded room. Something shifted in his expression. Not pity. I would have hated pity. But understanding. Recognition, maybe, of what it meant to carry weight no one else could see. "You're not invisible," he said quietly. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning I didn't fully understand. Before I could respond, someone called my name. Marco, probably, wondering why I was taking so long. But I couldn't seem to move. Couldn't seem to break whatever spell this stranger had woven with just his voice and his attention. I gestured toward the crowd. "You should," he agreed, but didn't look away. I forced myself to turn, to walk back into the chaos with my tray of drinks and my racing heart. But I could feel him watching, could feel the weight of his gaze following me across the ballroom like a physical touch. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. I served drinks, cleared plates, smiled until my face hurt. But I was hyper-aware of the bar, of the dark-haired bartender who seemed to track my movements even when I wasn't looking. Twice more I had to return for refills, and each time our fingers brushed. Accidentally, I told myself, though some part of me recognized the lie. It was past midnight when the crowd finally began to thin. My feet were bleeding inside my shoes, and my arms ached from carrying trays. But there was a strange electricity humming under my skin. A recklessness I didn't recognize but couldn't quite shake. The ballroom was nearly empty when I made my final trip to the bar. Most of the staff had already left, and the cleanup crew was starting to stack chairs and sweep up the glittering debris of a night I'd never be able to afford. He was still there, wiping down the counter with methodical precision. In the dimmer light, with the music silenced and the crowd gone, he looked even more dangerous, like something wild that had been temporarily caged but hadn't forgotten what it was. "Last call?" I asked, setting my empty tray on the bar, his hands stilled. When he looked up, there was something in his expression that made my breath catch. Hunger, maybe. Or recognition of something he saw in me that I didn't know how to name. "Should be," he said, "but I'm willing to make an exception. I should leave. Should thank him for his help tonight and walk away. Should go home to my tiny apartment and my sleeping mother and forget this entire evening ever happened." Instead, I leaned against the bar, close enough to smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made me think of shadowed rooms and secrets whispered in the dark. "I don't usually do this," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Before I could remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But tonight I just want to feel something that isn't exhaustion or fear or failure. His expression shifted, darkened. "Careful what you ask for." "I'm always careful," I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to my own ears. "I'm so careful that I'm disappearing. So careful that I can't remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to, not because I had to." He moved closer, coming around the bar with the fluid grace of a predator. Up close, I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice dropping to something low and dangerous. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. This was insane. I didn't know him. Didn't know his name or anything about him except that he made me feel reckless and alive and terrified all at once. But when would I get another chance? When would I ever feel this way again? Like I was standing on the edge of something vast and unknowable, something that could either destroy me or save me. Kiss me, I whispered, the words barely audible over the sound of my own pulse. Then, gathering courage I didn't know I possessed, I looked directly into his eyes and added, "Kiss me like you mean it." For a moment he didn't move, didn't breathe. The air between us grew so charged I could taste it, electric and dangerous and impossible. Then his hand came up, fingers curling around the back of my neck with a possessiveness that should have frightened me, but instead sent heat flooding through my entire body. His thumb traced my jaw, tilting my face up toward his. "You have no idea what you're asking for," he murmured, his lips a breath away from mine. "Then show me," I challenged. His kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. It wasn't gentle or sweet or tentative. It was consuming, devastating. The kind of kiss that rewrote everything I thought I knew about desire. His mouth claimed mine with an authority that made my knees weak, made every thought scatter except the feeling of his hands in my hair, his body pressed against mine, his breath becoming my breath. I made a sound, something desperate and needy, and felt him respond, deepening the kiss until I forgot where I ended, and he began. Forgot the empty ballroom, the cleaning crew probably staring, the thousand reasons this was a mistake. All I knew was that I was drowning and didn't want to be saved. When he finally pulled back, I was trembling. His eyes had gone nearly black, and there was something fierce in his expression that should have terrified me. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice rough. "Elena," I managed. "Elena Morrison." "Elena." The way he said it felt like a claim. Like he was memorizing it, filing it away somewhere important. "Hey," Marco's voice shattered the moment like a gunshot. "Morrison, what the hell do you think you're doing?" I jerked back, reality crashing over me in a cold wave. My supervisor stood in the doorway, face red with fury, and I suddenly remembered exactly where I was, what I'd done. "I'm sorry," I stammered, grabbing my tray with shaking hands. "I was just getting fired," Marco snapped. "Get your things and get out." Now. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. I couldn't lose this job, couldn't afford to lose any job, not with Mom's medical bills piling up, not with rent due next week. "Please," I started, but Marco was already turning away. I looked back at the bartender, at the stranger whose name I didn't even know, and found him watching me with an expression I couldn't read. There was something calculating in his gaze now, something that made me remember all the ways I'd noticed he was different, dangerous. "I'm sorry," I whispered again, though I wasn't sure who I was apologizing to. Then I ran. I grabbed my coat from the staff room, ignoring the curious stares from the other workers. My hands shook as I fumbled with the buttons, as I pushed through the service exit into the cold November night. The alley behind the venue was dark, lit only by a single flickering streetlight. The temperature had dropped, and I hadn't dressed for the cold. Steam rose from a nearby grate, and somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. I leaned against the brick wall, trying to catch my breath, trying to process what had just happened. I'd kissed a stranger, lost my job, made a complete fool of myself in front of... The service door opened behind me. I turned, expecting Marco with my final paycheck and another lecture. Instead, the bartender stepped into the alley, his movements fluid and purposeful. In the harsh light, I could see details I'd missed before. The expensive watch on his wrist, the way his clothes fit too perfectly to be anything but custom-made, the small bulge under his jacket that looked suspiciously like... No. I was being paranoid. "You followed me," I said, trying to sound brave instead of terrified and exhilarated and confused all at once. "I did." He moved closer, and I noticed for the first time that he walked like someone who expected the world to move out of his way. "You left before I could finish." "Finish what?" "Telling you my name." Another step. "Making you an offer." My back hit the wall. What kind of offer? His smile was slow, dangerous, the kind that changes everything. I should have run. Every instinct I possessed screamed at me to turn and disappear into the Manhattan night, to put as much distance as possible between myself and this man who looked at me like I was something he'd already decided to possess. But I didn't move. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was the way his presence seemed to fill the entire alley, making the cold November air feel charged and alive in a way that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. "I don't even know your name," I said, hating how my voice trembled. "Dante." He stopped just close enough that I could smell his cologne again, cedar and smoke and something darker. "Dante Moretti." The name rolled off his tongue like a promise and a threat. Italian, definitely, and something about the way he said it suggested I should recognize it, should understand its weight. I didn't. "Well, Dante Moretti." I tried to inject confidence I didn't feel into my words. "I appreciate whatever you're about to offer, but I just lost my job because of a stupid mistake, and I really need to go home and figure out how I'm going to pay my bills." "How much do you need?" The question was so casual, so direct, that it took me a moment to process. "Excuse me? Your mother's medical bills, your rent. How much do you need?" He tilted his head slightly, studying me with those dark eyes that seemed to see everything I was trying to hide. "Give me a number." I can't just..." I laughed, but it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. "You can't be serious. I'm always serious about business." He pulled out his phone, the screen casting harsh light across his sharp features. "And I'm making you a business proposition." "Answer the question, Elena." The way he said my name made my stomach flip, like he was tasting it, claiming it. 50,000, I whispered. "Maybe 60 with next month's rent and..." "Why am I telling you this? I don't know you. You could be anyone." "I could be." Something flickered across his expression. Amusement, maybe, or something darker. "But right now, I'm the man offering you a solution to your problems. Nothing comes free." I'd learned that lesson the hard way, watching my father disappear when the money ran out, watching my mother work herself sick trying to keep us afloat. "What do you want in return?" His smile was slow, predatory. "Smart girl. I want you to work for me." "As what? A bartender?" I glanced back at the venue, at the world of wealth and excess I'd just been expelled from, because I'm pretty sure I just proved I'm terrible at following the rules. "Not as a bartender." He moved closer, and I realized I had nowhere to go. The brick wall pressed cold against my back, solid and unyielding. I own several businesses throughout the city, restaurants, clubs, other ventures. I need someone I can trust in certain, delicate situations. "You don't know me well enough to trust me." "No." His hand came up, fingers tracing the line of my jaw with a gentleness that contradicted the danger in his eyes. "But I know desperation when I see it. I know what it looks like when someone's drowning and too proud to ask for help. And I know that kiss wasn't just about attraction, Elena. It was about escape. I should have been offended, should have slapped him and stormed away. But he was right, and we both knew it. That kiss had been me grabbing for something real, something that made me feel alive instead of slowly suffocating under the weight of responsibilities I couldn't carry. "What kind of delicate situations?" I asked carefully. "The kind where someone needs to observe and report, where looking invisible is an asset, not a liability." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, making my breath catch. "You said it yourself. People don't see you. They see the uniform, the service, but not the person. That's valuable. You want me to spy for you. I want you to be my eyes in places I can't go without attracting attention." He dropped his hand but didn't step back. 1 month. "Work for me, and I'll cover your mother's medical bills, your rent, and pay you enough to quit your other jobs. After 30 days, if you want to walk away, you can. No strings attached." That's insane. But even as I said it, my mind was calculating. 30 days. 1 month of whatever this was versus months, maybe years, of drowning in debt, of watching my mother fade because we couldn't afford better treatment, of working myself to exhaustion for minimum wage. "It's practical," he corrected. "You need money, I need someone who can move through wealthy circles without raising suspicion. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. And if I say no? His expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted, darkened. Then you walk away right now, and we never see each other again. I'll make sure Marco gives you your final paycheck. And that's the end of it. He made it sound so simple, so clean. But nothing about this man was simple. And I had a feeling that once I stepped into his world, there would be no clean way out. I need to think about it, I said. You have until tomorrow morning. He pulled out a business card, black with silver lettering that caught the streetlight. A phone number, nothing else. Call me before 9 a.m. with your decision. I took the card with trembling fingers. The cardstock was heavy, expensive, real. What if I go to the police? I don't know why I asked. Maybe to see his reaction. Maybe to convince myself I still had some control over the situation. He laughed, low and dark. And tell them what? That a man offered you a legitimate job? That he's willing to pay your bills in exchange for work? He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear as he whispered, Go ahead, Elena. Call them. See what happens when you try to explain that kiss. Heat and cold warred through my body. He was right. I had nothing concrete, nothing that sounded like anything other than a woman who'd made a pass at a stranger and was now regretting it. I should go, I managed. Yes. But he didn't move, didn't give me space to escape. One more thing. What? Don't look into me. Don't Google my name. Don't try to find out who I am or what I do. His hand cupped my face, tilting it up so I had to meet his eyes. If you decide to work for me, I'll tell you everything you need to know. But if you go digging first, the threat hung unfinished in the cold air. Why? Because some things, once you know them, you can't unknow. And I'd rather you made this decision with a clear head, not clouded by fear or prejudice. That should have terrified me, should have sent me running into the night without looking back. Instead, I found myself nodding, mesmerized by the intensity in his dark eyes, by the way his thumb traced circles on my cheekbone like I was something precious he was afraid might break. Tomorrow, I whispered. I'll call tomorrow. Good girl. He released me, stepping back and leaving me cold without his warmth. Go home, Elena. Lock your doors. And think carefully about what you really want. Then he was gone, disappearing back through the service entrance before I could form another word. I stood alone in the alley, clutching a black business card and trying to remember how to breathe normally. The subway ride home was a blur. I sat in the harsh fluorescent lighting, surrounded by late-night commuters and the smell of garbage and humanity, turning that card over and over in my hands. No name, no address. Just a phone number and the weight of a decision that felt impossibly huge. My apartment was dark when I finally climbed the 3 flights of stairs. I could hear Mrs. Chen's television through the thin walls, could smell curry from the Patel's unit, home. My tiny, cramped, falling apart home that I could barely afford. Mom was asleep in her room, her breathing labored even in rest. I stood in her doorway, watching the rise and fall of her chest, counting the pill bottles on her nightstand. 12. 12 different medications that we were rationing because the insurance only covered half, and we couldn't afford the copays. $60,000 would change everything. Would let her see the specialist at Mount Sinai. Would let me stop working 3 jobs and actually be here when she needed me. Would give us breathing room instead of this constant state of drowning, and all I had to do was work for a man I didn't know. Do things he wouldn't specify, enter a world that clearly operated by rules I didn't understand. I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over the search bar. Dante Moretti. How many could there be in New York? What would I find if I looked? His warning echoed in my mind, don't look. Don't dig. I closed the browser without searching. Sleep didn't come easily. I lay in my narrow bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, remembering the feel of Dante's hands in my hair, his mouth claiming mine like he had every right to it. The way he'd looked at me, not through me like everyone else did, but at me, seeing everything I was trying to hide. He was dangerous. Every instinct screamed it, but maybe that's what I needed. Maybe playing it safe had gotten me exactly nowhere, and it was time to take a risk. By the time weak sunlight filtered through my curtains, I'd made my decision. I called at 8:30, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone twice before it started ringing. He answered on the first ring, Elena. Just my name, spoken in that voice that made my spine tingle. No greeting, no surprise. I'll do it, I said before I could change my mind. 1 month, but I want the money for my mother's treatment up front. Done. No hesitation. There's a car waiting downstairs for you. My blood ran cold. What? How did you? Because I knew you'd call. Get dressed. Bring nothing except your phone and that card. The driver will take you somewhere we can talk properly. I can't just leave. My mother will be fine. I've already arranged for a nurse to stay with her today. She'll arrive in 15 minutes. I walked to my window, peeling back the thin curtain. Sure enough, a black SUV idled at the curb, completely out of place in my shabby neighborhood. The windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. How long have you been watching me? I asked quietly. Long enough. There was something dark in his tone, something possessive that should have scared me more than it did. Get in the car, Elena. It's time to learn what you've agreed to. He hung up before I could respond. I stood frozen, phone pressed to my ear, listening to dead air and my hammering heart. This was insane. I should call the police, should barricade my door and never answer that phone again. Instead, I pulled on jeans and a sweater, tied my hair back, and tried to look like someone who wasn't about to make the biggest mistake of her life. The nurse arrived exactly when Dante said she would, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and credentials from Mount Sinai. She introduced herself as Patricia and assured me she'd take excellent care of my mother, that she had all of Mom's medical information, that I shouldn't worry about a thing. I wanted to ask how she had Mom's information, wanted to demand explanations. But I was already walking down the stairs, already climbing into the back of that black SUV with its leather seats and tinted windows that turned the morning light gray and distant. The driver didn't speak, didn't even acknowledge my presence beyond a curt nod. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet of solid muscle, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. The kind of man who made people cross to the other side of the street. We drove through Manhattan in silence, leaving my neighborhood behind for progressively nicer areas. Brownstones gave way to high-rises, bodegas to boutiques. The city I knew transformed into one I only saw from the outside, serving drinks at parties I'd never be invited to as a guest. The SUV pulled up to a building in Tribeca, all glass and steel and money. The driver opened my door, gesturing toward the entrance where another man waited. Same build, same dangerous air, different scar. Miss Morrison. This one spoke, his accent thick and Eastern European. Follow me, please. The lobby was marble and modern art, the kind of space that echoed and made you feel small. We bypassed the elevator, heading instead to a private entrance that required a keycard and retinal scan. The doors opened to reveal a private elevator lined in mirrors and dark wood. My reflection stared back at me, pale, underdressed, terrified. What was I doing? I didn't belong here. Didn't belong in Dante's world, whatever that world was. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the city I'd only seen in magazines. The furniture was sparse but clearly expensive, leather and chrome and clean lines. Abstract art hung on exposed brick walls, and I recognized one piece from a documentary I'd watched about stolen paintings worth millions. Elena. Dante's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him standing in a doorway I hadn't noticed, dressed now in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my annual rent. He looked different in daylight, harder, more angular, undeniably powerful. The bartender's casual charm had been replaced by something sharper, more dangerous. Nice place, I managed, my voice sounding small in the vast space. It serves its purpose. He moved toward me with that same predatory grace, and I noticed details I'd missed last night. The way his jacket was tailored to accommodate something at his hip, the way his eyes constantly tracked exits and windows, the coiled tension in his shoulders that suggested he was always ready for violence. Are you going to tell me what I've agreed to? I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. Yes. He gestured to a leather sofa. Sit. This conversation requires honesty, and honesty requires comfort. I sat, sinking into cushions that probably cost more than my car. Dante remained standing, and I realized it was a power play. Him looking down at me, controlling the space and the conversation. I'm not just a businessman, Elena. I'm sure you've figured that out by now. You're a criminal. It should have been a question, but we both knew it wasn't. I'm a businessman who operates outside certain legal constraints, he corrected with a slight smile. My family has controlled certain territories in this city for 3 generations. We provide services, protection, transportation, financial arrangements for people who can't or won't use traditional channels. You're in the Mafia. The word felt ridiculous saying it out loud, like something from a movie, not real life. That's a crude term, but essentially accurate. He moved to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses without asking if I wanted any. The Moretti family has deep roots in New York. We have our hands in legitimate businesses, restaurants, construction, waste management, but we also handle matters that require discretion. He handed me a glass. I took it with trembling fingers but didn't drink. And you want me to spy for you? On who? Other criminals? On everyone. He sat across from me, close enough that our knees almost touched. The wealthy, the powerful, the people who think they're untouchable. They talk freely around service staff, never imagining that the waitress or the coat check girl might be reporting back to someone who knows how to use information. Corporate espionage, blackmail. I was starting to understand, and the understanding made my stomach twist. Intelligence gathering, he corrected. Information is currency in my world, Elena. More valuable than drugs or guns or any other commodity. And you, invisible, forgettable you, are perfectly positioned to collect it. I should have been insulted, should have thrown the drink in his face and walked out. But he was right. I was invisible, always had been, and maybe it was time that invisibility became useful. The medical bills, I said quietly. You'll really pay them, up front? Before you leave today, your mother's account will show a 0 balance. I've also arranged for her to see Dr. Chen at Mount Sinai, the best pulmonologist in the city. Her appointment is next week. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. I take care of what's mine, Elena. And once you agree to work for me, you're mine. The possessiveness in that statement should have sent me running. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my stomach. Made me remember the way he'd kissed me like he was claiming something that already belonged to him. For 1 month, I clarified. For 1 month, he agreed. And then we renegotiate, and if I want to walk away after 30 days? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Then you walk away. I'm many things, Elena, but I'm not a slaver. You'll always have a choice. The way he said it made me doubt the truth of that statement, but I was too far in now to turn back. Okay. I set down the untouched drink with shaking hands. What do I do first? Dante's smile was slow, satisfied. First, we make sure you understand the rules and the consequences of breaking them. The rules, as Dante explained them, were simultaneously simple and terrifying. Never ask questions about his business beyond what I needed to know for my assignments. Never speak to law enforcement about anything I saw or heard. Never betray his trust. And never. This he emphasized with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Never try to leave without telling him first. I need to know where you are, he said, pulling out a phone I'd never seen before. Sleek, black, expensive. This is yours now. It has 1 contact programmed. Me. Keep it charged and on you at all times. I took the phone with numb fingers. You want to track me. I want to protect you. He stood, moving to the window where the morning sun cut sharp angles across his face. The moment you walked into my world, you became a target. My enemies will use you to get to me if they discover our connection. This phone has security I can monitor. GPS I can track. It keeps you safe. Or keeps me on a leash, I muttered. His reflection smiled in the glass. Both. I don't believe in pretending, Elena. Yes, I want to know where you are. Yes, I'm possessive. Yes, I will control aspects of your life that you're not used to having controlled." He turned, and the intensity in his dark eyes stole my breath. "But in return, you get safety, resources, and the knowledge that nothing will touch you while you're under my protection." The weight of his gaze made me feel exposed, vulnerable, like he could see every doubt, every fear, every foolish hope I was trying to hide. "When do I start?" I asked. "Tonight. There's a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum. Old money, new money, all of them pretending their fortunes are clean." He moved back toward me, close enough that I had to tilt my head to maintain eye contact. "You'll be part of the catering staff. A friend of mine owns the company. He owes me favors. Your job is simple. Observe, listen, remember. That's it? Just listen? For now." His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. "Later, when you understand how this world works, I'll ask for more. But tonight, I just need your eyes and ears." His touch lingered, fingers trailing down my neck to rest against my racing pulse. I should step back, should establish boundaries. But my body refused to cooperate. Drawn to his heat despite every logical reason to run. "There's something else," he said quietly. "People will assume things about our relationship. Let them. The more they think you're just another woman warming my bed, the less threatening you appear." Heat flooded my face. "You want people to think we're sleeping together? I want people to underestimate you." His thumb traced circles on my throat, and I hated how my breath hitched at the contact. A pretty distraction is invisible in a different way. They'll dismiss you as irrelevant, just another piece of decoration, and while they're dismissing you, you'll be gathering everything I need. And are we? The question escaped before I could stop it. "Sleeping together, I mean." His smile was dark, dangerous. "Do you want to be?" "Yes." "No." I didn't know. My body responded to him in ways that terrified me, drawn to the danger and power he radiated like a moth to flame. But letting this become physical would complicate everything, would blur lines that needed to stay clear. "I want to understand the rules," I said carefully. "The rules are whatever we decide they are." He released me, stepping back and leaving me cold. "I won't force anything you don't want, Elena, but I also won't pretend I don't want you. That kiss last night wasn't just for show, and we both know it." My phone, my real phone, buzzed in my pocket. Mom. I pulled it out, seeing her name flash across the screen, and reality crashed back over me. This wasn't a romance. This was business, a transaction. 1 month of my service in exchange for her life. "I need to check on my mother," I said. "Patricia is with her. She's fine." But Dante gestured toward a hallway. "Take the call in the guest room if you need privacy. Second door on the left." I fled, grateful for the escape, and found myself in a bedroom that was bigger than my entire apartment. Minimalist furniture, more abstract art, windows offering views that made my head spin. I answered the call with shaking hands. "Elena? Honey, there's a woman here. She says you hired her." "I did, Mom." The lie came easier than it should have. "It's just for today. I have an interview for a better job, and I didn't want you to be alone. But sweetheart, we can't afford. It's taken care of." I stared out at the city below, at the lives being lived in those buildings, wondering how many were as complicated as mine had suddenly become. "Don't worry about money. Just let Patricia help you, okay? She's a professional." We talked for a few more minutes, Mom's voice weak but hopeful, and guilt twisted through my chest like a knife. She had no idea what I'd agreed to, no idea that her daughter was now working for a man who'd just casually admitted to being in the Mafia. When I returned to the living room, Dante was on his phone, speaking rapid Italian to someone. He switched to English when he saw me, wrapping up the conversation with clipped efficiency. "Your mother?" he asked. Confused, but okay. I slipped my old phone back into my pocket. She wanted to know how we could afford a private nurse. "And what did you tell her?" "That I got a better job." I met his eyes, which isn't exactly a lie. "No." His expression was unreadable. "It's not." though I doubt she'd approve of the employer. She doesn't need to know. The words tasted bitter, but they were true. The less Mom knew, the safer she was. The less she could be used against me, or against Dante. Smart. He checked his watch, and I noticed the subtle bulge under his jacket again. Definitely a gun. Marcus will take you home. Get some rest. Address will be delivered to your apartment by 4. Wear it tonight. Marcus will pick you up at 6:30. That's it? I just go home and wait? Unless you'd prefer to stay? The suggestion hung in the air between us, heavy with implications. I have work to handle this afternoon, but you're welcome to remain here. Explore. Make yourself comfortable. The offer was tempting. This penthouse was warm and safe, and so far removed from my cramped apartment with its thin walls and broken heater. But staying felt like crossing a line I wasn't ready to cross. I should go, I said. Mom will worry if I'm gone too long. Something flickered across his expression. Disappointment, maybe, or approval that I'd chosen the sensible option. As you wish. Marcus was waiting by the elevator, his massive frame somehow both threatening and reassuring. The ride down was silent, and I was grateful for it. My mind was spinning, trying to process everything that had happened in less than 12 hours. Last night, I'd been a struggling waitress. This morning, I was... What? A spy? An informant? Something without a name that operated in shadows and moral gray areas I'd never had to navigate before. The drive back to my neighborhood felt like traveling between worlds. Tribeca's gleaming towers gave way to my shabby corner of the city, where trash piled on curbs and the buildings looked tired. Marcus pulled up to my building, and for a moment I just sat there, trying to reconcile these two realities. Miss Morrison. His accent was thick, but his English was clear. Dante wants you to know. You are protected now. Anyone bothers you, you call. Understand? I nodded mutely, and he handed me a card identical to the one Dante had given me last night. My number is programmed in your new phone. Emergency contact. Thank you, I managed. His expression softened slightly. He is good man. Hard, yes. Dangerous, yes. But he protects what is his. You are safe with him. I wasn't sure if that was meant to be reassuring or a warning. Patricia was still with Mom when I returned, and I found them chatting like old friends. Mom looked better than she had in weeks. Color in her cheeks, brightness in her eyes that came from actually having someone to talk to besides her exhausted daughter. Elena. She reached for my hand when I entered. Patricia was just telling me about the new treatment protocol Dr. Chen is recommending. Apparently my appointment got moved up to next week. That's wonderful, Mom. I squeezed her hand, avoiding Patricia's knowing look. The nurse had clearly been briefed on more than just medical care. We spent the afternoon together, Mom napping while I pretended to read, but mostly stared at the new phone Dante had given me. It sat on the coffee table like a black hole, pulling at my attention. One contact, one number, one connection to a world I was only beginning to understand. At 4 o'clock exactly, a delivery arrived. The dress box was unmarked, but the tissue paper inside whispered of money. I lifted out a gown that made my breath catch. Deep emerald silk that pooled like water, elegant and sophisticated, and completely unlike anything I'd ever owned. There were shoes too, jewelry. Everything I'd need to look like I belonged in that world of wealth and excess. I tried it on in my tiny bedroom, barely able to turn around without knocking into furniture. The dress fit perfectly. Of course it did. Dante had probably taken one look at me and known my exact measurements, filed the information away with everything else he observed and cataloged and used. The woman staring back at me from the cracked mirror didn't look like Elena Morrison, struggling waitress and exhausted daughter. She looked like someone who belonged in penthouses and private elevators, someone who could move through Dante's world without raising suspicion. The transformation was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Mom whistled when I emerged. Baby girl, you look like a movie star. This new job of yours must be fancy. It's just serving at a gala, I said, which was technically true. But they want the staff to look nice. Well, you certainly do. Her eyes misted up. I wish your father could see you like this. He always said you were meant for better things than this neighborhood. Before he abandoned us for those better things, I thought bitterly. But I just smiled and kissed her forehead. Get some rest. I'll be home late. Marcus arrived at 6:30 sharp. The SUV felt familiar now, this cocoon of tinted glass and leather separating me from the real world. We drove through evening traffic while I fidgeted with the delicate bracelet that had come with the dress, wondering if it was real diamonds or just very good fakes. Real, Marcus said, startling me. I hadn't realized I'd spoken aloud. Dante doesn't do fake anything. The Metropolitan Museum was lit up like a jewel against the darkening sky. We bypassed the main entrance, heading instead to a service door where other catering staff were arriving. Marcus handed me an envelope containing credentials and a small earpiece. Communication device, he explained. Dante will be able to hear everything you hear. You press here. He showed me a nearly invisible button. If you need immediate help. Otherwise, just listen and observe like he said. My hands shook as I fitted the tiny device in my ear, hidden beneath my hair. The reality of what I was about to do crashed over me. I was about to walk into a room full of New York's elite, wired to transmit everything back to a mafia boss who'd kissed me like he owned me just 24 hours ago. You'll be fine, Marcus said gruffly. You're smart. You're careful. And Dante chose you for a reason. Before I could ask what that reason was, he was gone, melting back into the shadows, like he'd never been there at all. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked into my new life. The museum's great hall had been transformed into something from a dream or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, and ice sculptures depicted Greek gods in various states of divine drama. The air hummed with wealth, perfumes that cost more than my monthly rent, the soft rustle of designer gowns, the clink of champagne flutes containing liquid that probably ran $1,000 per bottle. I moved through it all with a silver tray balanced on my palm, my server's smile fixed in place, my eyes and ears open. Remember, Dante's voice whispered through the earpiece. So intimate it made me shiver. You're invisible to them, just another piece of the scenery. Listen, observe, and tell me everything later. I wanted to respond, to ask if he could really hear everything, but I settled for a subtle nod instead. Around me, conversations flowed like the champagne, loose and unguarded. Mergers and acquisitions, political donations, who was sleeping with whose spouse, the kind of information that could ruin lives or make fortunes, discussed as casually as weather. The Patterson deal is a sure thing, a silver-haired man in a tuxedo said to his companion as I refilled their glasses. Mayor's already been paid off. Construction starts next month, and anyone who complains will find their permits mysteriously delayed. I kept my face neutral, moved on. Two women in matching diamonds discussed a pharmaceutical trial, laughing about falsified data. A group of younger men, hedge fund types, compared notes on offshore accounts and tax evasion strategies. Good, Dante murmured in my ear. Keep moving. Look for anyone meeting privately, away from the crowd. I circulated through the hall, and that's when I saw him. Dante across the room, surrounded by men in expensive suits who deferred to him with subtle nods and careful words. He wore a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of another era, dangerous and elegant and completely in control. A woman in a red dress clung to his arm, laughing at something he said, but his eyes were scanning the crowd. They found mine across the distance. The impact was physical. Even surrounded by hundreds of people, even with a room between us, I felt the weight of his attention like a touch. His expression didn't change, but something in his gaze intensified. Claimed. The woman on his arm said something, her hand trailing up his chest in a gesture that was unmistakably possessive. Jealousy flared hot and unexpected in my stomach. I had no right to it, no claim on him beyond a business arrangement and one devastating kiss. But watching her touch him made my hands clench around the tray. Focus, Elena. His voice in my ear was amused. The blonde in the corner. She's meeting someone she doesn't want others to see. I forced my attention away from him, scanning until I spotted her. Mid-40s, dripping in sapphires, glancing nervously toward a side gallery. I moved in that direction, refilling glasses and collecting empties, making my way closer. A man joined her, younger, handsome in a calculated way, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit the quality of the room. Their conversation was hushed, urgent. You promised me the information by tonight. the man hissed. My employer is not a patient man. I'm working on it, the woman replied, her voice tight with fear. Marcus Torino doesn't just hand over client lists. I need more time. You don't have more time. Either deliver what you promised or... He leaned closer, his tone dropping to something threatening. I moved past them, heart pounding, and caught Dante's reflection in a glass display case. He'd positioned himself where he could watch both me and the conversation, and I realized this wasn't coincidence. He'd known they'd be here, had sent me to confirm it. Perfect, he said softly. Now go to the second floor. Egyptian wing. There's something I need you to see. I slipped away from the main party, climbing marble stairs to where the crowd thinned. The Egyptian wing was dimly lit, artifacts casting strange shadows across walls. My footsteps echoed on the stone floor, and I felt utterly alone despite knowing Dante could hear everything. Voices drifted from around a corner. Male, speaking in Italian. I pressed myself against a wall, straining to hear. Moretti can't control the docks forever. Santoro is ready to move. We just need the signal. And if Dante finds out we're talking to his enemies, then we're dead. But if we stay loyal to a sinking ship, we're dead anyway. Better to pick the winning side while we still can. My blood ran cold. These were Dante's own men, plotting against him. I needed to tell him. Needed to. A hand clamped over my mouth. I tried to scream, but the sound died against a palm that smelled of leather and gunpowder. My tray clattered to the floor, champagne glasses shattering in an explosion of crystal and liquid that echoed through the gallery. Well, well, a voice breathed against my ear. Not Dante. Someone else. What do we have here? One of Moretti's little birds? I thrashed, but he was stronger, dragging me backward into shadows. Panic clawed up my throat. Through the earpiece, I could hear Dante speaking rapidly in Italian, his voice sharp with an emotion I couldn't name. Elena. His voice cut through my terror. The button. Press the button now. I fumbled for the hidden panic button Marcus had shown me, finally finding it. Pressed. The man holding me cursed as footsteps thundered from multiple directions. He shoved me hard, and I stumbled, catching myself on a display case. By the time I'd regained my balance, he was gone, melted into the shadows like smoke. Marcus materialized first, gun drawn, his massive frame blocking me from view. Then Dante, moving with deadly purpose, his expression more terrifying than anything I'd ever seen. The elegant businessman was gone. This was the man who controlled criminal empires, who inspired fear in men who traded violence like currency. Where? He demanded. I pointed toward the corridor where my attacker had disappeared. Marcus and two other men vanished in pursuit, while Dante pulled me against him, one hand fisting in my hair, the other running over my body checking for injuries. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, barely controlled. No. I'm fine, but Dante, I heard everything. He pulled back enough to look at my face, his eyes blazing with something between fury and fear. You did well. But this ends now. What do you mean? I mean, you're not going back down there. I mean, this was a mistake. His jaw clenched. I should never have put you in danger. I'm fine, I insisted, but my hands were shaking. And I got you information. Isn't that what you wanted? Not at the cost of your safety. He cupped my face, thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized I'd shed. Elena, if something had happened to you... He didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. The raw emotion in his expression said everything. Marcus returned, slightly out of breath. He got away, had a car waiting. But we got a partial plate. Dante's expression shuddered, the vulnerability vanishing behind cold calculation. Find him. And find the two having that conversation. I want everyone involved in this room in my office by midnight. Boss? Marcus hesitated. The woman. She's connected to Senator. I don't care if she's connected to the Pope himself. She conspired against my family. Handle it. He turned back to me, his voice softening. Come, we're leaving. But the party is no longer your concern. He guided me toward a private exit, his hand possessive on my lower back. You've done more than enough for one night. The SUV was waiting, and Dante bundled me inside before climbing in after me. The door hadn't even closed before he had his phone out, issuing orders in rapid Italian. We pulled away from the museum as emergency vehicles arrived. Police, ambulances. Though I hadn't seen anyone injured. What did you tell them? I asked. That there was a medical emergency requiring evacuation of part of the venue. Enough to justify clearing witnesses without raising too many questions. He pocketed his phone, his attention finally fully on me. You're trembling. Someone tried to grab me. I think I'm allowed to tremble. You are. His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers interlacing with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the violence I'd just witnessed. And you handled it perfectly. The information you gathered tonight is invaluable. About your men planning to betray you? About my men revealing themselves as traitors, yes. Also about the woman trying to steal from Marcus Torino. He's a legitimate businessman I've been protecting. And about the pharmaceutical fraud that's going to make headlines when I forward that information to the right journalist. His smile was cold. One night, Elena, and you've given me everything I need to clean house and strengthen alliances. I should have felt proud. Should have been satisfied that I'd earned my keep. Instead, I just felt exhausted and scared and aware of how far I'd stepped into waters I didn't know how to navigate. Where are we going? I asked, realizing we weren't heading toward my neighborhood. My place. You'll stay there tonight. Dante, I can't. My mother is being taken care of. Patricia is staying overnight, and I've already arranged for additional security on your building. You are not going back there until I'm certain it's safe. His tone brooked no argument. Someone grabbed you tonight, Elena. Someone who knew you were working for me. That means your cover is blown, which means you're in danger. The reality of that settled over me like a weight. So what happens now? Do I just hide in your penthouse forever? No. He lifted my hand, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that made my breath catch despite everything. Now we make sure everyone knows exactly who you belong to. Make sure anyone thinking about touching you understands the consequences. The possessiveness in his voice should have angered me. Should have made me pull away. Instead, some twisted part of me responded to it, craved the safety it promised, even as I understood the price. I'm not yours, I said quietly. This is business, remember? His laugh was dark. Keep telling yourself that, Beleza. But we both know that stopped being true the moment you asked me to kiss you like I meant it. I wanted to argue, wanted to establish boundaries and remind him of our agreement, but when he pulled me against his side, wrapping his arm around me like I was something precious he needed to protect, I let him. Because tonight I'd been scared and alone and vulnerable, and being held felt better than being brave. The penthouse was dark when we arrived, lit only by the city lights streaming through those massive windows. Dante guided me to the couch, poured 2 glasses of something amber, and sat close enough that our thighs touched. Drink, he ordered gently. I obeyed, the whiskey burning down my throat and pooling warm in my stomach. We sat in silence for a moment, and I studied him in the low light, the sharp lines of his profile, the tension in his shoulders that suggested he was still ready for violence. You were scared for me, I said finally. When that man grabbed me, I could hear it in your voice. Yes. No deflection. No pretense. Why? I'm nobody. You're not nobody. He turned to face me, and the intensity in his dark eyes stole my breath. You're brave and smart and stronger than you know, and in one day, you've become more important to me than you should be. Dante, I know this complicates things. I know it makes everything harder. His hand came up, fingers tracing my jaw with aching tenderness. But I don't believe in lying to myself. I want you, Elena. Not just as an employee, not just as an asset. I want you. My heart hammered against my ribs. This is a bad idea. The worst, he agreed. I should maintain professional distance. Absolutely. We should establish clear boundaries. Without question. So, why are you looking at me like that? His smile was slow, dangerous. Because despite all the logical reasons this is a terrible idea, you're looking at me the same way. He was right. God help me. He was right. I was looking at him like I wanted him to kiss me again, to make me forget everything except the feel of his hands and the taste of his mouth. 1 month, I whispered. That was the deal. Then let's not waste it. He leaned in, his lips brushing mine with devastating gentleness. Tell me no, Elena. Tell me to stop, and I will. But if you say yes, what happens if I say yes? Then you're mine. Completely. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. I should have said no. Should have walked away. Should have done 1,000 things that weren't kissing him back with desperate hunger, climbing into his lap, losing myself in the taste of whiskey and danger and desire, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered yes against his lips and let myself fall. The next 3 weeks blurred together in a haze of danger and desire that redefined everything I thought I knew about myself. Dante was true to his word, obsessively, possessively true. He paid Mom's medical bills in full, got her the appointment with Dr. Chen, who prescribed a new treatment protocol that had her breathing easier within days. Arranged for Patricia to visit 3 times a week, giving Mom companionship and professional care that transformed her from a woman slowly fading to someone who laughed again, who talked about future plans instead of just surviving each day. But the price for that miracle was my freedom. I moved into Dante's penthouse after that first night. Not officially, he claimed, just until the threat is neutralized. But my clothes appeared in his closet. My toothbrush materialized in his bathroom. My life slowly, inexorably merged with his, until I couldn't remember where Elena Morrison ended and Dante Moretti's woman began. The traders from the museum were handled. I never asked how. Didn't want to know the details of what happened to men who betrayed the Moretti family. But I noticed how the other members of Dante's organization looked at me afterward, with respect tinged with fear, like I was more than just the boss's girlfriend, like I was someone who mattered. I gathered information at 3 more events over those weeks: a wedding where I overheard a district attorney discussing cases he'd agreed to throw, a corporate gala where pharmaceutical executives laughed about price-fixing life-saving medications, a charity auction where I watched city councilmen auction off their votes to the highest bidder. Each time, I wore beautiful dresses Dante selected. Each time, Marcus drove me and watched from the shadows. Each time, Dante listened through that tiny earpiece, his voice a constant presence guiding me through dangerous waters. And each night I came home to him, to hands that knew exactly how to take me apart and put me back together, to kisses that felt like claiming and surrender all at once, to whispered Italian endearments I didn't fully understand but felt in my bones. Ti voglio, he'd murmur against my skin. Sei mia, mine. I was his. And the terrifying part was how much I wanted to be. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most beautiful illusions. It was Marcus who finally told me the truth, 3.5 weeks into my arrangement with Dante. We were in the SUV, driving back from a morning visit with Mom, when he said quietly, "You should know what you're really involved in." I looked up from my phone, the one Dante had given me, which I'd stopped resenting and started depending on. "What do you mean?" "The man who grabbed you at the museum. We found him." My blood ran cold. "And?" "He worked for the Santoro family. They've been trying to move in on Moretti territory for months. The grab was a message. They know Dante cares about you, and they're willing to use that against him." "But it's been weeks. Nothing's happened." Marcus's expression was grim in the rearview mirror, because Dante made an example, sent a message of his own. "But Miss Morrison, you need to understand. You're not just gathering information anymore. You've become a symbol. Proof that Dante Moretti is willing to go to war over someone he considers his." The weight of that settled over me. He never told me. He wouldn't. "He protects you from the worst of it." Marcus hesitated. "But you deserve to know the truth. Men have died because of you. Territory has changed hands. Alliances have shifted. And Dante, he's made enemies of people who won't hesitate to hurt you to hurt him." I stared out the window at the city passing by, this place I'd lived my whole life suddenly feeling foreign and dangerous. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your 1 month is almost up, and you need to decide if this is really the life you want." That night, I waited for Dante in the penthouse, my decision crystallizing with each passing minute. He came home late, smelling of cigar smoke and tension, his eyes tired in a way I'd never seen before. "Bad day?" I asked from my position curled on the couch. "Long day." He shrugged out of his jacket, and I saw the gun holstered at his side, a reminder of the violence that was always just beneath the surface of our life together. 3 meetings, 2 near conflicts, and a shipment that almost got intercepted by the feds, but it's handled. It's always handled with you, isn't it? Something in my tone made him pause. "Elena, what's wrong?" "Marcus told me about the Santoros, about the men who died." I stood, wrapping my arms around myself, "about what I've become in your world." Dante's expression hardened. "I'm going to kill him." "No, you're not," because he was right to tell me. I moved closer, needing to see his face clearly. "You've been protecting me from the truth, making me feel safe while people die because of our connection. Would you have preferred I let you live in fear?" He closed the distance between us, hands gripping my shoulders. "Let you know every threat, every danger, every person who wants to use you against me. I would have preferred honesty. The truth would have destroyed you." His voice was harsh, raw with emotion I rarely heard from him. "You think I don't see how you struggle with what we do? How you hate yourself a little more each time you gather information that ruins someone's life? I've been trying to spare you the worst of it. By lying to me, by protecting you." His hands tightened. "Elena, you asked me to kiss you like I meant it. Well, I meant it. I meant every touch, every word, every promise to keep you safe. And if that means shielding you from the full reality of my world, then yes, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes." Tears burned my eyes. "I can't be the reason people die, Dante. I can't. Those men died because they threatened what's mine. They would have died whether you existed or not." He pulled me against him, one hand fisting in my hair. "Don't you understand? You didn't make me this way. I was always this man, violent, possessive, willing to destroy anyone who threatens my family. You just became part of that family." "In 1 month?" I laughed bitterly against his chest. "We had a business arrangement. We had a lie we told ourselves to make this acceptable." He pulled back, forcing me to meet his eyes. "But I haven't thought of you as an employee since the moment you asked me to kiss you. Since I saw you standing in that alley, brave and desperate and so beautiful it hurt. I've been falling for you since then, Bellezza, and I'm done pretending otherwise." The admission stole my breath. "Dante, your month is up tomorrow. You can walk away. I'll make sure you're protected, that your mother continues to receive care, that you're safe from anyone who might want revenge. You can go back to your life and forget this ever happened. Or," his smile was sad, beautiful, "or you stay." Knowing exactly what that means, knowing the danger, the violence, the moral compromises, knowing that I will never let you go once you're truly mine. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the choice then, the real one. Not the business arrangement we'd started with, but something infinitely more complicated and dangerous and real. "If I stay," I said slowly, "things change. No more lies. No more protecting me from the truth. If I'm going to be part of your world, then I need to understand all of it." Something fierce and possessive flared in his dark eyes. "You're sure? Once you see everything, you can't unsee it." "I'm sure." And surprisingly, I was. These weeks had shown me who Dante really was. Not just the violence and danger, but the man who held me through nightmares, who made sure Mom had fresh flowers every week, who listened to my dreams about going back to school and encouraged me to pursue them. The man who was darkness and light in equal measure. "Then I'll show you." He kissed me, hard and claiming. Everything. The businesses, the operations, the full truth of what it means to be Moretti. "And when you still choose to stay, because you will, Elena, I can see it in your eyes, then we do this right." "What does that mean?" His smile turned wicked. "It means I make you mine in every way that matters. Legally, publicly, irrevocably. It means everyone knows that touching you means war with me. It means you stop being my secret and become my strength. The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, It sent heat pooling through my body, made me remember every night in his arms, every whispered promise. "You're insane," I whispered. "About you? Absolutely." He lifted me easily, my legs wrapping around his waist. "Say yes, Elena. Say you'll stay. Say you're mine." I thought about my old life, the exhaustion, the invisibility, the slow drowning in bills and responsibilities. Thought about who I'd been a month ago versus who I was now. Thought about walking away from this man who'd given me everything I needed and everything I never knew I wanted. The choice wasn't hard. It never really had been. "Yes." I breathed against his lips. "I'm yours." 6 months later, I stood in Dante's office, our office now, reviewing reports from our network of informants. I'd learned the business inside and out, understood the delicate balance of power that kept the Moretti family on top. Learned to live with the moral complexities, the necessary evils, the reality that sometimes protection required violence. Mom was in remission, living in a beautiful apartment Dante had bought her, finally pursuing the art classes she'd always dreamed about. She knew now what Dante did, some of it, at least. Knew her daughter had chosen a dangerous path. But she also saw how he looked at me, how he protected not just me, but everyone I loved, and she'd given us her blessing. "Mrs. Moretti," Marcus said from the doorway, and I still wasn't used to hearing my married name. "The shipment arrived safely, no complications." "Good." I signed off on the report. "And the situation with the Santoros?" "Resolved, permanently." His expression was grim, but I'd learned to accept what that meant. "Dante wants you to know he'll be home for dinner." I smiled, thinking of my husband, because that's what he was now, after a small ceremony with only family present, after vows that bound us legally and emotionally and irrevocably. "Tell him I'm cooking, and that he better not be late," Marcus grinned. "He wouldn't dare, ma'am." As he left, I turned back to the windows overlooking the city. My city now, in ways I never could have imagined. I'd gone from invisible waitress to the wife of one of New York's most powerful men. From drowning in debt to managing a criminal empire's information network. The girl who'd asked a hot bartender to kiss her like he meant it had no idea where that kiss would lead, had no idea she was talking to a mafia boss who would turn her entire world upside down. But standing here now, wearing Dante's ring, carrying his name, living a life that was dangerous and complicated and utterly perfectly mine, I wouldn't change a single moment. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante. "Ti amo, bellezza, on my way home to you." I smiled, typing back, "I love you too. Hurry home." Because this was my life now. Danger and passion, darkness and light, a love that defied logic and morality and every safe choice I'd ever made. And I'd chosen it, chosen him, chosen us. The hot bartender had been a mafia boss in disguise, and somehow, impossibly, he'd become my everything.